They stand at the edge of their world, staring back at the moments they once took for granted. The love they assumed would always be there, the comfort they never thought they'd lose. The realization doesn't hit like an earthquake. It creeps in, slow and silent, like the eerie stillness before a storm. And then, before they know it, it's everywhere. It fills the spaces where laughter once lived, lingers in the silence where warmth used to be. And in that moment, they know. They lost something they can never replace. But here's the twist. This isn't about waiting for them to wake up and see your worth. This isn't about sitting in the shadows, hoping they recognize what they threw away. This is about you stepping into your power so completely that they have no choice but to return, humbled, desperate, knowing they stand before someone extraordinary. They say the phoenix doesn't rise for the ashes it leaves behind. It rises for the sky it was always meant to conquer. And that's where your story begins. Not in the heartbreak, not in the regret, but in the rebirth. You are not broken. You are rising. The love you gave was never wasted. It was proof of your depth, your beauty, your strength. But now, it's time to turn that love inward. It's time to fuel your own transformation, to become someone who doesn't just attract, but commands respect, admiration, and devotion. The kind of person they return to, not because they deserve another chance, but because they finally understand they never deserved you in the first place. Think of yourself as a star, a force of nature, burning so brightly that even the darkest skies can't dim your light. For too long, they took that glow for granted, assumed it would always be there to guide them, to warm them, to comfort them. But stars don't shine for those who refuse to see them. And when you step back, when you take your light and direct it toward yourself, that's when something extraordinary happens. Your glow doesn't fade, it intensifies, and suddenly the absence of your light becomes the one thing they can't ignore. Relationships are a dance, a rhythm, a balance, and when one person stops showing up, when they stop matching your energy, when they assume you'll always be there no matter how they treat you, that dance crumbles. But here's the truth. You don't need them to feel whole. The love you're looking for, it starts with you. It always has. By reclaiming your power, by focusing on your growth, your dreams, your joy, you rewrite the narrative. You show them, and the world, that your worth was never tied to their recognition of it. Enough is enough. It's time to take your power back. Imagine them now, scrambling to piece together what they lost, searching for you in the faces of others, replaying your voice in the quiet moments, feeling the cold, empty space where your warmth used to be. That's the thing about people who take you for granted. They only realize what they had once it's gone. But by the time they're desperate for your attention, you'll have built a life so full, so radiant, that their regret will be nothing more than background noise. They walked away, but you are still standing, stronger, wiser, unstoppable. The strongest fires create the brightest flames, and this is your fire. Let it burn away the doubt, the fear, the lingering sadness. Let it fuel your rise. You have cried enough. Now it's time to conquer. Your scars, they are proof that you survived. Your strength, that's the compass guiding you forward. Every setback, it was just a setup for this moment. The moment where you take back everything. The moment where you prove to yourself that you were always the prize. They left? Good. Now building. Build without limits. This isn't about surviving heartbreak. It's about thriving in its aftermath. Picture a garden, lush, alive, overflowing with color. You poured your love into the soil. You nurtured the connection. But instead of watering it, instead of growing with you, they let the weeds take over. They assumed the garden would thrive without effort. But now they stand in the ruins of what they neglected, realizing too late. It wasn't the soil that failed. It was their lack of care. But you took your seeds, your sunlight, your magic, and you planted elsewhere. And the garden you're growing now, it's thriving, brighter, stronger, more breathtaking than ever before. So stop waiting. The time is now. Your silence will echo louder than their words ever could. Stop chasing. Stop explaining. Stop giving access to someone who didn't value what they had. Instead, let your actions speak. Build a life so magnetic, so powerful, that no one can ignore it. Turn your pain into power, your heartbreak into strength. The most powerful thing you can do is not to convince someone of your worth. It's to live so fully, so beautifully, that your absence feels like an endless winter. That is the Stoic power move. That is the strategy that will bring them back. Not because you need them, but because you've shown them they can't live without you. You are not a victim. You are the hero of this story. Your future is watching. What will it see? Someone who lets pain define them, or someone who rises, who refuses to settle, who takes back their throne. The love you deserve starts with the love you give yourself. Feel the pain, but don't live there. Use it. Let it sharpen you, strengthen you, push you forward. Your story isn't over. It's just beginning. And when they come back, when they stand before you, regret heavy in their chest, heart in their hands, remember this: their return is not your validation. You already found that within yourself. You are the phoenix, the warrior, the unstoppable force. You rise because you are worthy. And whether they are part of your future or not, one thing is certain: your light will never be taken for granted again. Your power is unstoppable. Your journey is just beginning. Don't let this moment pass you by. Hit that subscribe button and join a community of unstoppable, radiant people rising into their worth every single day. Together, we will build lives so extraordinary that the world has no choice but to notice. 1. Your absence will teach them what words never could. They lie awake in the dead of night, staring at the ceiling, drowning in a silence that wasn't there before. The absence of your presence, once so constant, now roars louder than any argument, louder than any goodbye. It's not the words left unsaid that haunt them. It's the quiet realization of what they lost. They never thought this day would come. They assumed your warmth would always be there, ready to comfort them, to fill the empty spaces in their life. But now they are left with nothing but echoes, the sound of their own regret. This is the power of your absence, not as revenge, not as a game, but as a truth they can no longer escape. Sometimes we don't appreciate the sun until we are left standing in the cold. That's what they feel now. The cold, creeping loneliness of knowing they had something rare and let it slip through their fingers. Relationships aren't built on comfort. They are built on effort. Love isn't something given endlessly without care. It's something nurtured. And yet they took and took, believing you would always pour into them without asking for anything in return. But even the strongest souls have limits. For so long, you were the fire in their life. You gave warmth, you gave light, you gave understanding, and they basked in it, never considering that fires burn out when neglected. And now they sit in the cold shadow of their own choices, wondering how they could have been so blind. Your absence is not silence, it's a mirror. It forces them to sit with the weight of their own actions, or worse, their inaction. No distractions, no excuses, just them, staring at the undeniable truth. They had something real, something beautiful, and now it's gone. They might have thought they could replace you, that they could fill the space you left with distractions, with someone new, with anything to avoid feeling the loss. But time reveals all things, and the truth. What you brought into their life was never ordinary. It wasn't something they could find again so easily. You never know the worth of water until the well runs dry. And now, they are thirsty. But this isn't about them. This is about you. You did not walk away because you were weak. You walked away because you refused to stay where your worth wasn't recognized. There is no power in begging for someone to see your value. There is power in stepping back and letting them feel what life is like without you. Every day you choose yourself. Every moment you invest in your own growth. You are not just healing, you are becoming unforgettable. The strongest steel is forged in fire. And this is your fire. Picture a lighthouse standing tall, its beam guiding lost ships to safety. That was you, their constant, their direction, the one who always showed up. But what happens when the light goes out? The sea becomes a treacherous, unpredictable void. And they are left navigating the darkness alone. That is the power of your absence. Not as punishment, not as a tactic, but as proof. Proof that you were never just a convenience, never just someone to fall back on when it suited them. Your love was a gift. And now they understand what it feels like to live without it. You are not defined by their failure to see your worth. You are defined by how you rise. And when they finally see the truth, when they finally understand what they lost, you will no longer be waiting, because this is just the beginning. 2. They took your shelter for granted. Now they're facing the storm alone. Imagine a house standing strong, its walls unshaken, its roof a refuge from every storm. No matter how fierce the winds blew, no matter how heavy the rain poured, inside there was warmth, there was safety, there was peace. That house was you. You were their shelter, the safe haven they could always return to, the place where they felt understood, secure, whole, and like all things taken for granted, they assumed you would always be there, that no matter what, your doors would remain open, that no matter how many times they left, they could always come back. But what happens when the shelter they relied on disappears? What happens when the very foundation they thought was unshakable is suddenly gone? Now the winds howl, the rain lashes down, and they are left exposed, vulnerable, standing alone in the very storm they thought they could survive without you. This isn't just poetic justice, it's reality. They were never prepared for this. They thought they could walk away without consequence, that they could treat your love like an option instead of a gift. But now, stripped of the warmth they once knew, they are forced to confront the cold truth. You weren't just a part of their life, you were the heart of it. A ship is safe in harbor, but that's not what ships are built for. That was you, the harbor, the calm in their chaos, the steady ground when life felt overwhelming. But a harbor isn't meant to be taken for granted. It's meant to be cherished, protected, valued. And when they failed to do that, when they mistook your patience for weakness and your kindness for permanence, they unknowingly set themselves adrift. Now they are lost at sea. They thought they could do without you, but now they struggle to find direction. The world they once navigated so easily feels uncertain, cold, unpredictable. The safety net is gone. The comfort they once leaned on is no longer there. And the further they drift, the more they realize they had something rare, something real. And now it's out of reach. Do they regret it? Of course, but regret doesn't change reality. And the reality is, you were never the one who needed them. They needed you. But here's the question. Why did it take losing you for them to see your worth? Why did they only realize what you meant to them after you were gone? The answer is simple. Because they never thought you would leave. They never thought they would face a world without your presence, without your love, without your steady, unwavering support. Now, they understand what they once had, and now they are the ones who feel lost. But this isn't about them, it's about you. You are not the shelter that gets abandoned when the skies are clear, only to be sought after when the storms roll in. You are not the backup plan, the afterthought, the place of convenience when all else fails. You were the home they never thought they would lose. And now, they stand outside in the rain, realizing too late that the doors they once walked through so easily are no longer open. You are not their safe place anymore, and the storm, that is theirs to face alone. 3. They thought they had it all, until they realized what was missing. Imagine them sitting alone, surrounded by the life they thought they wanted, the things they once chased, the distractions that once felt exciting, yet something is off. No matter how much they try to ignore it, the silence is deafening. The empty spaces are glaring, and as they sit there, staring at the fragments of what used to be, they come to a crushing realization. None of it makes sense without you. Life was once a complete picture, vibrant and whole, but now it's like a puzzle with a missing centerpiece. They might have believed they could move forward, that they could fill the void with someone else, with distractions, with anything that numbed the loss. But time has a way of revealing the truth. And the truth, nothing fits the way you did. The heart recognizes what the mind tries to deny, and that's where their journey begins. At first, they won't admit it. They'll convince themselves that everything is fine, that life is moving forward as it should. But as the days stretch into nights, as the laughter fades, as the empty spaces grow wider, it becomes impossible to ignore. They'll seek comfort in shallow connections, in fleeting moments of attention, but everything will feel hollow. Everything will remind them of what they lost, because what you brought into their life wasn't ordinary. It was rare. It was the anchor that steadied them, the compass that guided them through storms they didn't even realize they were navigating. And now they're lost at sea, looking for the North Star they let slip away. Think of a masterpiece hanging in a grand gallery, stunning, intricate, mesmerizing. It holds everything together, demands attention, leaves a lasting impression. But now, imagine someone removes its centerpiece. Suddenly the entire composition crumbles. The beauty is incomplete. The masterpiece? Just an empty frame with faded colors and broken lines. That's what your absence does. They once believed they could paint a new picture, build a new life without you. But the colors are dull, the lines are blurred, and the frame that once held everything together is now just a hollow reminder of what was. They might try to pretend they don't notice. They might put on a front. But deep down, they know. The life they thought would be enough now feels like a shell of what it could have been. And here's the part they never saw coming. You weren't just another piece of their world. You were the piece that brought everything into harmony. Without you, the music is offbeat. The story is unfinished. The home feels empty, no matter how many walls they build around it. This isn't about revenge. It's not about making them suffer. It's about the undeniable truth that when someone loses something irreplaceable, they will always feel the weight of that loss. They will search for it in places it can't be found. They will try to recreate it with people who will never measure up, and they will come to understand, too late, that what they had was never just an option. It was the masterpiece they never should have let go. And now they're left with the one thing they never expected: regret. 4. The pull of your presence. They can't escape it. Imagine the moon and the ocean. The tides rise and fall, pulled by an invisible force, steady, powerful, undeniable. No matter how far the waves stretch, they always come back. That's the power of your presence. Even as they drift away, caught up in distractions, chasing illusions, the gravity of what you gave them pulls at them, not in loud, desperate cries, but in quiet, unshakable truth. They may think they've moved on. They may tell themselves that life continues as it always has. But the reality? They feel it. The absence of your love is not an empty space. It's a force, a weight, a missing rhythm in their world. Because love like yours doesn't just disappear, it imprints. Some connections are written in ink, others in stone, but the rarest ones are carved into the soul, and that's exactly where your presence remains. Not in fleeting memories, not in surface-level nostalgia, but in the foundation of who they are. At first, they'll fight it. They'll distract themselves. They'll convince themselves that they can replace you with temporary thrills. But time has a way of revealing the truth. The depth, the authenticity, the quiet strength of what you offered cannot be replicated. Relationships aren't built on words alone. They are built on presence, on resilience, on the kind of unwavering support that you gave so effortlessly. And that's the part they will struggle with the most. Because while they wander like the wind, never settling, never grounding themselves, you were the roots, the foundation, the place where they always found solid ground. Picture a tree standing tall in the middle of a raging storm. The winds thrash against it, trying to uproot it, trying to break it. But the tree holds firm. Its roots grip the earth with quiet determination. It doesn't chase the wind. It doesn't waver. It simply stands, unshaken. That is your love. That is your presence. And no matter how far they go, they cannot outrun the pull of what you planted in their life. They may chase excitement, chase freedom, chase whatever they think will fill the void. But when the storm calms, when the noise fades, when the distractions lose their shine, they will hear it. The whisper of something real, something deep, something irreplaceable. And that whisper will call them home. But here's the truth. This was never about them. It was always about you. You are not waiting. You are not hoping. You are not chasing. Because the greatest power is in knowing your own worth, in standing tall like that tree, knowing that the right ones will always find their way back, not because you need them, but because they finally realize they need you. 5. They'll search for you in everyone, but no one will compare. Picture them sitting across from someone new, trying to convince themselves that this is what moving on looks like. The conversation flows, the laughter comes easily, but something feels off. The spark isn't there. Every word spoken, every smile exchanged, it all feels hollow, like a song played out of tune, like a masterpiece painted in dull, lifeless colors. At first, they don't want to acknowledge it. They push the thought away, telling themselves that this is just how things go. But the truth lingers. It creeps in slowly, like a whisper in the back of their mind, growing louder with every passing moment. Until finally, It roars, undeniable and relentless. They are chasing shadows. What they let go wasn't just another connection. It was something real, something irreplaceable. And now, the bitterness of comparison is the only taste they know. They say, "The heart doesn't lie, it knows its true home." And that's the cruel part of this realization. They can sit across from 100 different people, share moments with 1,000 faces, but none of it will ever match what they had with you. Because love isn't about filling space, it's about depth, it's about connection, it's about the unique magic two people create together, a magic that cannot be replicated. And that magic? It was never in the routine, never in the surface-level smiles. It was in the way you understood them, the way you saw them when no one else did, the way your presence felt like home. Now, as they hold up their new reality against the canvas of what you once shared, they finally see it. How dull, how lifeless, how empty everything else seems. Think of a masterpiece hanging in a gallery, breathtaking, impossible to replicate. They once had that masterpiece in front of them, but they let it go, believing they could find something just as beautiful elsewhere. But no imitation, no copy, no substitute can ever match the original. They didn't just lose someone, they lost you. And that's when the weight of it starts pressing down. At first, it's subtle, a joke that doesn't land the way it used to, a silence that feels heavier than it should, a moment where they instinctively expect you to be there, only to remember that you're not. But then, it grows. They start noticing the little things, the way you laughed at their quirks, the way you stood by them even when they faltered, the way you made even the ordinary feel like magic. These aren't things they can replace. They're the essence of who you are, and that essence, it lingers. It haunts them in every interaction moving forward. Imagine a melody so beautiful, so perfectly composed, that every other tune sounds hollow in its wake. You were that melody in their life, the harmony that made everything feel right. And now, as they try to compose a new song, they'll find that the notes don't fit, the rhythm feels off, the music lacks soul. That's the price of losing something real. They will search for you in others. They will try to recreate what they had, but all they will find are echoes, faint imitations of the love they once held in their hands and foolishly let go. 6. Your light was never meant to be trapped in their shadow. Have you ever noticed how even the brightest light can be invisible to someone who refuses to open their eyes? That's where your story begins, where your love was overlooked, your presence taken for granted, and your radiance dismissed as ordinary. But here's the truth. Your light doesn't fade just because they failed to see it. It shines on, piercing through the darkness, moving forward to places their shadow cannot follow. They may only now be realizing what they lost, but their regret doesn't define this story. Your light does. You don't chase the sun, you bask in its warmth if you're lucky enough to feel it. And that's exactly what you were to them. The sun, steady, life-giving, irreplaceable. But when someone tries to pull your light into their shadows without giving anything in return, it's not your job to dim yourself to make them comfortable. Instead, you rise, you shine brighter. You become the beacon they will long for, but may never touch again. Picture a lighthouse standing tall against a raging storm. Its beam cuts through the darkness, guiding ships safely to shore. But what happens when a sailor ignores the light, thinking they can find their own way? They drift off course, lost in the storm, desperately searching for the beacon they once dismissed. That's your light, constant, unwavering. But it doesn't exist for those who refuse to value it. You offered love, support, and clarity. But relationships are not rescue missions. They are partnerships. And the right person. They won't just stand in your light. They will amplify it. The wrong one will try to pull you into their shadows, failing to realize that your light was never meant to be contained. Enough is enough. Take back your radiance. Let your love and presence become so powerful, so self-assured, that they are left chasing the glow they once took for granted. Now, imagine them sitting in silence, staring into the darkness of their own making. They thought they could move forward without you. They believed they could replace what you brought into their life. But instead, they are surrounded by shadows, feeling the cold absence of your warmth, the emptiness where your laughter once lived. That's when they realize the light they never appreciated was the very thing they needed all along. But this time, you are not the one moving toward them. Your path is forward, toward the life you were meant to create, toward joy, toward love that doesn't demand you shrink yourself, toward the kind of peace that no longer waits for someone to wake up and recognize your worth. Your light doesn't fade because they left. In fact, it grows stronger with every step you take toward your own growth. Every boundary you set, every moment you choose yourself, every time you refuse to dim your brilliance, you become a force they cannot ignore. They may try to return, drawn to the glow they once underestimated, but this time, you are the one in control. This isn't about revenge. It's not about proving anything to them. It's about reclaiming your space, your joy, your worth. Their regret is not your validation. It's simply a side effect of your unwavering brilliance. While they wrestle with the shadows of their choices, you are moving forward. You are turning every setback into a stepping stone, because the strongest fires create the brightest flames. And your fire? It's blazing now. Feel the pain, but don't live there. Let it fuel your rise, not their return. You have cried enough. Now it's time to conquer. Your light will shine where their darkness cannot follow. And as you rise, you'll see that the love you've been searching for, it was always within you. You are not broken. You are evolving. Every setback was a setup for this moment. A moment where you realize that your worth was never tied to someone else's ability to see it. Look in the mirror. That is your greatest ally. You are not surviving anymore. You are thriving. 7. They'll search for you in others, but no one will compare. Picture them sitting across from someone new, watching their lips move, hearing their laughter. Everything should feel right. On the surface, this is what they wanted: a fresh start, a new connection. But something is missing. The spark isn't there. The words feel empty. The laughter feels forced. At first, they don't understand it. They convince themselves that this feeling will pass, that they just need time. But then, the realization creeps in, slowly at first, like a whisper in the background of their mind. And then, like a storm, it crashes into them with full force. They are chasing shadows. Because what they lost wasn't just another person, it was something real, something irreplaceable. And now, the bitterness of comparison is the only taste they know. They say, the heart doesn't lie, it knows its true home. And that's the cruel part of it. They can meet 100 new people, share moments with 1,000 different faces, but no one will ever feel quite the same. Because you weren't just another presence in their life. You were the foundation, the standard, the benchmark against which every other experience now pales. Relationships aren't just about companionship. They are about depth, connection, the kind of unspoken understanding that makes the world feel a little less heavy. And that's what they took for granted. They thought they could replace you, that they could fill the void with someone new. But now, As they hold up these new experiences against the canvas of what you once shared, everything else looks dull, lifeless. Think of a masterpiece, a painting so breathtaking, so intricate that no copy could ever do it justice. That was you. You didn't just fill space in their life, you elevated it. You brought color to the mundane, depth to the shallow, meaning to the meaningless. And now, as they sit across from someone else, trying to force a connection that isn't there, they realize what they lost wasn't just special, it was once in a lifetime. The bitterness of comparison is a powerful thing. It doesn't strike all at once. It begins in the smallest of moments. A joke that doesn't land the way yours did. A silence that feels too loud. An interaction that lacks the ease and warmth they once took for granted. And then it grows. Suddenly, they start noticing all the little things. The way you understood them without them having to explain. The way you laughed at their quirks instead of making them feel foolish. The way you stood by them, even in their worst moments. These aren't things they can replace. They aren't just memories. They are the essence of who you are. And now they haunt them. Imagine a melody so beautiful, so perfectly composed, that every other song sounds hollow in comparison. You were that melody in their life, the harmony that made everything else feel complete. And now, as they try to compose a new song, the notes don't fit, the rhythm feels forced, and no matter how hard they try, nothing sounds quite right. That's the price of losing something real. They will search for you in others. They will try to recreate what they had. But all they will find are pale imitations, faint echoes of a love they once held in their hands and foolishly let go.